Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode in our Meet the Venture series for the BLAB 2020 cohort. Today, we're here with Instance. So, to start us off, why don't you guys start telling us a little bit more about yourselves?
Hi, I'm Grace. I am from New Jersey, and I'm class of 2019 undergrad, and I study biomedical engineering. And right now, I'm in the middle of my master's, also in biomedical engineering.
Hi, I'm Joshua Daniel. I also go by Renato, my middle name, and I am from St. Lucia in Trinidad. I was Brown undergrad, class of 2018. I studied biomedical engineering, and I recently completed my fifth year master's in biomedical engineering, design track at Brown also.
Wow, that's so interesting. Did you guys meet in your concentration departments?
I guess being in the same concentration, we did see each other here and there, but we ultimately had the same advisor for our masters. So he was able to connect us for this project.
Well, that's so nice of him to connect the two of you. So, tell me a little bit more about Instance.
Yeah, Instance started as my thesis, which was the idea was a connected force plate to help folks who require a certain kind of therapy called standard therapy measure how well they're able to load bear as opposed to leaning on structures. This therapy is primarily used for persons who are non-ambulatory, and whether that be because of traumatic injury or congenital diseases. And through B-Lab, and in particular in the past, I would say 2 weeks or so, we've really been trying to pivot to something that is more widely applicable. And so at the moment, we are focusing, and we envision this being the long-term vision of Instance, uh, uh, a solution, a platform for persons of a wide range of mobility disabilities, allowing them to build community around activity.
Well, that is very inspiring. And at what point did you know you wanted to work on this as more than just your thesis, as your own venture?
Yeah, great question. I think, to be honest, the conversation first started with my advisor. I think in October or November of 2019. I think he, Professor Crisco, shout out to Professor Crisco. He is an excellent advisor, and he also has a keen interest in entrepreneurship. And I think in earlier conversations, we also discussed that as related to design and things of that nature. And so he said, he just brought up, what's your appetite for entrepreneurship? And entrepreneurship is something I envisioned for my career uh, 10, 15 years down the line. And I thought, why not now? And B Lab just seemed like a extremely accessible, um, very well coached opportunity for me to really dive into the realm of entrepreneurship. And in particular, I was keen on working on advancing my thesis, in part because it was something that I invested time in, but in large part because I was actually invested in this community, um, in particular persons with um, persons who are neuroatypical and who have musculoskeletal issues resulting from that.
And why is this problem so important to you guys?
It's important for our bodies to move to whatever capacity and to reap the benefits of health and activity. And community has always been tied to exercise, to serve as competition, encouragement, connection. And community through activity has been long established for able-bodied populations. So we realized that there is an unmet need in this area for people with mobility limitations.
So, taking that into consideration, who is your target market?
So our target market is a wide range of persons who have mobility disabilities. We are doing a lot of customer discovery interviews at present to really focus in on who our biggest market might be. But I think would love to emphasize that we envision this solution being something that not only connects persons with mobility disabilities, but connects their loved ones to their progress, and perhaps also allows persons with mobility limitations as well as their loved ones and clinicians to be a greater part of that, of being their best, of people being their best.
Well, isn't that an inspiring message? So tell me who inspires you in your startup?
I think the initial idea came from work that my advisor's done, but more and more it's evolved into something with uh, less of a technical and research focus, to something that is inspired by community and a very human-centered approach to what people need to be their best. My niece has cerebral palsy and she's nonverbal and non-ambulatory. And just in conversation with my brother and my sister-in-law and a lot of other folks, clinicians and physical therapists, it's really inspiring to see that people care. People with mobility limitations also want to be their best selves. I think that transcends mobility limitations. Everyone, I think, wants to be their best physically, and everyone gets a little lonely sometimes and can feel isolated. And activity and exercise is a really great way to build community. And I think when to answer the question of who inspires, I think I'm not inspired by any huge brand or anything. I think it's more just persons whose day-to-day work is protecting and serving the vulnerable and the neglected.
Oh, I didn't know about your niece. Well, I hope that Instance eventually is able to help her and others like her. So tell me, what are you working on right now?
We're conducting customer discovery interviews to get a better understanding of their experiences, primary concerns, and the wants of uh, the mobility disability community, including professionals and family members. Yeah.
Anyone, as Grace mentioned, we're doing a lot of customer discovery, and I think this is a great time to emphasize that if you are someone who loves or cares for or professionally treats persons with mobility disabilities, or if you are, and definitely if you are someone with a mobility limitation, we would love to chat with you. And at a later point in this podcast, we'll put a plug for how we can be contacted.
Well, that is something we can most certainly do. So if you're listening to this and you want to reach out to Grace or Runaku, feel free to contact them in the email provided below in this description. Anyways, so what is something surprising that has happened so far in the development of Instance?
I don't know if this was something surprising, but actually, yes, this was surprising. We've had a lot of conversations with manufacturers and designers and engineers in the realm of creating healthcare technology for persons with mobility limitations. Overwhelmingly welcoming to new, engaged interest from young persons who are excited about this area of work. I overwhelmingly keen on providing support, whether that be through advice or at least two have already offered providing their durable medical equipment to support testing and things of that nature, and providing contacts. It's been fantastic.
And how has B Lab helped you achieve success for Instance or in its development?
B-Lab has been excellent in providing a great introduction to a lot of realms of building a startup that I think Grace and I, as engineers first and foremost, had didn't have a very strong background in. So I'm talking about things like sales and building financials, and not enough work. We didn't know enough about intellectual property and all things of this nature that are and real and branding and things like that. We thought would be a year, 2 years down the line, but it can be very important to start developing at least a baseline consideration for what these things might be like later on right now.
Well, I'm glad B-Lab was able to help with the development of Instance. So before we move on to our final question, is there anything else you would like to add or any last thoughts?
Yeah, it's really exciting to work in a space with a community that is all engaged, especially for family members with, people with family members, people who have family members with a mobility disability. Any type of work that advances here is going to help all of them. So it's really, it's really
fulfilling.
Yeah, so it's really fulfilling to be able to work with these people, for these people. Yep.
Well, that was beautifully said. And now for our final question and my personal favorite. What is the latest TV show you guys have been binge watching?
I haven't been invested in a series right now, so bad answer. Moving on.
I am watching 2 shows right now. I am watching the Jordan doc, the Last Dance, and I watched maybe 3 episodes yesterday. And then otherwise, I've been watching this 90s sitcom called Living Single. It's about I think 6 black young adults living in New York City in the 90s, starring Queen Latifah, and it's awesome. Really throwback humor.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you guys had as much fun as I did. And thank you for tuning in today. This has been another episode in our Meet the Venture series for the B-Lab 2020 cohort. Today you learned more about Instance, and we hope you'll tune in next week to learn more about our upcoming venture.